The summer book by Tove Jansson is about a grandmother and a granddaughter who spend their summers on a little island. The girl's father and the grandmother's son is also there, but he's very not mentioned hardly at all. We just kind of are aware that he exists there with them. But basically, it's just these two, and they're in the story. It's told in little vignettes. So every chapter is for example, the first one is the morning swim, and the cat, the cave, and everyone just takes a little moment from one of their summers on the island. So time feels a bit hazy, which is sort of appropriate for the season, because we're not sure if it's all in the space of just a couple summers, or maybe even it could be one summer, or it could be many. So it has a sort of feeling of something that's lazy and lasts forever, and that's really nice, while never shying away from questions of mortality and things like that on the grandmother's part, and in little bits which are nice. It's a very very chill book. Not a lot happens. The moments are just little interactions. And at the beginning, when I was reading it, one thing that I really liked about it was that it reminded me of the Moomin books, which is what Tove Jansson is most famous for outside of Scandinavia, at least. I think in general that's what she's most famous for. But she's very famous as a writer of adult books as well in Scandinavia. And yeah, the things that reminded me of the Moomin books, I guess, were this sort of very simple language in dialogue used to convey things about life that are kind of deep and psychological, but in ways that felt not sentimental either. Sometimes very things that we would often consider quite sad or bitter things as well, but put in a very sort of relaxing, soothing way that I found really great. But at the beginning of it, I was also sort of comparing it unfavorably to the Moomins, because I was like, well, yeah, this is just like the Moomins, but there's no magic and adventures, and so it's sort of it's just two people. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, but some of the first chapters I kind of felt, oh, this is nice in the way that maybe if you read you might find in a new writing magazine or something like that, where it's there's lots of great writing on display in just a few pages, but I don't have any connection to the characters really, and the world itself is just a sort of empty summary shell. But that changed as it went on. I started getting into it more, and I started not judging it by the Moomin so much, and kind of seeing it for what it is, which is a different thing, even though there's obviously similarities because it's the same writer. But yeah, the relationship between Sophia and her grandmother is really touching and really engaging, and some of the chapters, especially there was this one called The Cat, which is about love. And it's just a brilliant short story by itself. I think most of these would work as short stories by themselves, and it's one of those cool books where I think you could probably read the chapters in any order you like and still kind of feel like it's the same novel. Although I haven't finished it yet, I'm about halfway through at the moment, so I will report back later to let you know how that's going. Oh yeah, one more thing. I've been audiobook listening. When I first got to Germany, when I was in Aachen, staying with Laura, I was listening to Charlotte's Web, and I finished that, and my god, that was amazing. I had read it, or had it read to me, I think, before when I was a child, and it left an impression, and I really wanted to go back to it as an adult, and oh wow, just wow, need to talk about that somewhere else, but that was incredible. Yeah, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. And then I started listening to Rapture, a book of poetry by, don't need to hold this anymore, Rapture, a book of poetry by Caroline Duffy. And I just wanted some poetry. I felt in the mood for some poetry, and it's perfect. It's just a book of love poems, and it's just really nice to just have that on occasionally when I want to hear a little voice in the background. And so far, Rapture and the summer book are really great kind of contrasting complements for my trip in Heidelberg. Did I mention I'm in Heidelberg? Okay, gonna try this without a tripod because I already packed it and I cannot be bothered to delve down into that bag again. Something I forgot to mention about the summer book is why I'm reading it. I saw in Ireland, in Dublin, in a bookshop, this lovely blue cover, which is one of the like kind of rare cases where a photograph actually looks good. I think on a book cover because it's like it's blue. You know, the sky basically, the hue of the sky basically takes up the whole cover. So it's yeah, like there must be like we should make a list, right? We should make a list of all the photograph book covers that actually look good because there can't be that many. It'll be a short list, I think. But yeah, I really like this cover, and this is the island that Tove Jansson used to go to, which is the inspiration for the island on the book. But anyway, I saw this cover in Ireland in the shop in Dublin, and I was drawn to it, and it had a little sticker on it, like around here, one of those little gold circles that said it was the 50th anniversary this year of the summer book. And I'd been meaning to read one of Tove Jansson's, you know, like adult books for a really long time. And this is the most famous one, so I thought, I'll do that this year maybe. And then yeah, I picked it up in London. I've still got 40 pages to go. It does remind me that she writes, you know, for children in a really good way, because of her way of putting things simply between the grandmother and the child, obviously, like the vocabulary, but also like there's this one chapter I just read called The Enormous Plastic Sausage, which feels like it could have been written by Roald Dahl almost. Like it's there's not magical stuff happening in it, but you know, the real life almost feels like it becomes like blown out of proportion and becomes like exaggerated and becomes like a magical adventure thing. So like there's a lot of magic stuff in the background. Almost sometimes I think like magical realism, where it's like there's a coat that she has and there's like a shadow that lives in the coat. And when you're reading it, you're like, is it a squirrel? What is the thing that keeps moving in the coat? Then later on we hear that the thing just crawls out of the coat and slinks away under a door. And it's like, wait a minute, this is probably just a child's imagination, isn't it? And there's a lot of imagination stuff because there's like the grandmother is playing with the child. So it's really chill, but it's also got a really kind of like fun, like playing imaginary games kind of vibe to it as well. I'm back in Dublin. I've finished the summer book. I finished it on the 1st of August, which was very nice because the last chapter is called August. And of course, it's like, you know, the end of summer and stuff like that. I mentioned before that like you could put the chapters in any order, and it would still like read as a really interested, like it would still read as a novel. It wouldn't like change the story really. But there are some structuring things that are very subtle, like ending on the August chapter, and also like the middle chapter is called Midsummer. I forgot to mention that when I was in the middle of the book. But yeah, so there's like little kind of structuring things there, and also certain like I guess reveals of key information happens at bits in the stories, which I do think is very deliberate actually. So like we learned something about Sophia, the little girl, in like very near the beginning, which is just absolutely key to understanding lots of the relationship between her and her grandmother, which I won't reveal here because of spoilers. But like, but yeah, it wouldn't be the same if it appeared at the end. You know what I mean? So even though it feels quite random, there are little small things like that which make it feel also like a novel. And yeah, one of my first impressions having finished it is something that I kind of already knew, but this book really reaffirms it. It's just that feeling of, I love this form of a book which can be both short stories and a novel. You know, it can pass as both quite convincingly, because it's quite rare, I think, to find things that do that. And this is a prime example of that. So I feel that kind of belief is really reaffirmed with the summer book. Another instant takeaway is just that Tove Jansson is an incredible writer and a master of the unspoken or the unsaid, because so much of the power in this is from like little things that we infer, that we understand, or that like you know, the very simple language resonates to create an impression of something quite complex and heavy and meaty, which you kind of, it's not on the page. You have to think about it a lot yourself. On the other hand, one of the things that makes it feel like a short story collection is the fact that each chapter does have its own sort of contained like narrative arc and also theme. So like one chapter that I absolutely adored at the end, called Day of Danger, is all about superstition. And it's like kind of, it's obvious that this is a chapter about superstition and how superstition, you know, different ways that it impacts our lives and structures people's lives and different approaches to it, both from the perspective of someone who's old and from the perspective of a child. And it's only a few pages, but it does so much, and it's and it's brilliant as well because it's contained. Like, you know, superstition doesn't really play a big role in lots of the other chapters. There are overlapping themes like mortality and stuff like that, and yeah, they're not totally random. There's like a running thread through this because it feels so gentle and pleasant, and like you're on like this idyllic summer island and just like passing the days very slowly, doing day-to-day things. And there's something so sweet and like kind of honest about this, but also a kind of darkness or sadness or melancholy that's laced into the chapters, which stops it from becoming sentimental. Like, it's amazing, I think, that this doesn't veer into sentimentality given the way that it's written. So like, I think it does come a little bit close sometimes, but like it always manages to steer clear. And the last like couple paragraphs, the last few sentences even, yeah, just the last like 3 sentences, my goodness, they pack such a punch. And that's another part of how she structures it to be like a novel. Like, it's no coincidence that like one of the most hard-hitting bits is like the last 3 sentences, and that, I don't know, it's again, because it's unspoken, it's also one of the most open to interpretation things. Like, I feel depending on what mood you're in, it could be quite an uplifting ending, or in another mood it could actually be quite a depressing ending. And of course, like maybe the true answer lies in between the two, because that's just life. It's got both aspects in it, and that kind of feeling is all the way through the novel. But I think it really is really powerful at the very end. So Tove Jansson must have realized that and deliberately put that at the end of the book. So there is a structure throughout the whole thing that makes it like a novel. But yeah, what an absolutely fantastic book. This would be such a good book as a present, I think, to give to somebody. It's so gentle and nice and lovely. It's such like a vibe. It's like you're giving them like summer vibes when you give them this. But also it's got so much psychological insight about people, and it's so, you know, like I think Tove Jansson is just like a great observer of human psychology, and her skill is being able to put that all forward in a very simple way, which feels like, yeah, children's literature. Maybe this is also a good gateway book for people who aren't interested in the Moomins, because I personally prefer the Moomin books that I've read a little bit more than this one still. But like, yeah, for a lot of people, maybe they prefer literary fiction and they feel like the Moomins might be a little bit childish or just not their cup of tea. But in that case, I would definitely recommend the summer book, because this is obviously, yeah, more for adults, and yet, if you read this and you really like this, then maybe you could use it as a gateway drug into the land of the Moomins, into Moomin Valley. But yeah, so that was the summer book by Tove Jansson. Thank you very much for watching the vlog. Let me know your comments and thoughts down below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye bye.